When it comes to roadside comfort food, nobody beats Cracker Barrel. The down-home restaurant might be rooted in the South, but can be found along highways and byways from coast to coast. Order up one of the items on our list and you're pretty much guaranteed a great meal. If you're homesick for mama's cooking, few things satisfy your craving more than chicken fried steak. When it comes to fried food, chicken seems to get all the golden brown glory. But chicken fried steak is the dark horse that deserves our attention. The history of the dish offers much debate, but according to the Culture Trip, we can likely thank the European settlers who came to America. When German and Austrian expats landed in Texas, they brought along with them recipes from their homeland, including Wiener Schnitzel. Based on affordability and availability, it's thought that they likely grabbed cheap cuts of beef for frying, resulting in what we now know as chicken fried steak. What stands out about Cracker Barrel's version is they've really nailed the meat to breading ratio. The tender but affordable USDA choice steak is coated in a perfect blend of flour, egg, and just the right amount of seasoning. This dish may push your maximum sodium count for the day, but it's so worth it. Stretchy pants are not included. While on the topic of poultry, it's been reported that Cracker Barrel sells over 11 million orders each year of another popular dish, their chicken and dumplings. What is now affordable fare found on nearly every menu that celebrates Southern cooking, the dish did not start out that way. According to Wide Open Eats, when it first made its way to dining tables across the United States in the latter half of the 1800s, it would be what we would now describe as a delicacy. During this time, the pre-industrialized farming era, chicken was pricey and often passed over for cheaper cuts of meat, such as veal and chuck roast. Thanks to availability and affordability, these little pillows of goodness now have us fondly recalling trips to our grandma's house, not financial hardships. Cracker Barrel's version is slow-cooked and hearty, with tender chunks of all-white meat chicken. While you may be familiar with some recipes that call for an almost biscuit-like dumpling, theirs features a flat version of the carb that almost mimics a noodle. The two items are married together in holy matrimony with creamy, rich chicken broth. At only 40 calories a serving, Cracker Barrel's broccoli side dish will let you leave room for the true stars of the show. They're delectable main dish options like roast beef and hamburger steak. Other sides clock in well beyond this, such as the 300 calories you'll consume for cornbread dressing. This delight for the calorie-conscious is also featured in the chain's popular Wednesday-only offering, broccoli cheddar chicken. Upon scouring the internet, we were even able to track down a fantastic copycat version of the recipe thanks to the Spicy Southern Kitchen. Perfect for evenings Thursday through Tuesday. We never thought we'd be saying this, but please pass the broccoli. Ham has been a staple in mankind's diet for at least a couple thousand years. In the dry-cured European pork dishes of Italy, Spain, and elsewhere. Be it a holiday ham on Easter or Christmas, a classic playground-friendly ham and cheese sandwich, or a beautifully curated charcuterie board, where would we be without the fatty goodness? In the early 1600s, adventurous colonists arrived in North America, bringing along with them both practical and cherished items. Lucky for us, pigs also happen to be one of those beloved items. Now you'll never have to choose between salty and sweet again, thanks to Cracker Barrel's sugar-cured ham. The age-old battle of sugar versus sodium comes to rest here with perfect balance. While country ham tends to rely heavily on the salt in its curing process, sugar-cured ham has a hint of salt, while leaning toward the sweeter side of the spectrum. It's a winner-winner ham dinner for us, whatever the case. Universally known, yet often poorly executed, macaroni and cheese is really the pinnacle of comfort food. We're talking perfectly al dente noodles, butter, and cheese coming together in creamy baked bliss. Cracker Barrel's version features elbow macaroni noodles and their signature yet undisclosed cheese blend. The combo is baked together just long enough for an extra creamy product with the perfect amount of crispy cheese patches on top. Nothing fancy here. In this day and age where you could indulge in a shaved, truffle-topped aged white cheddar mac and cheese that will set you back a mortgage payment, we'll gladly accept this near-perfect presentation of the iconic American dish in its most basic and natural form. No two words have ever sounded less appealing together than meat and loaf, but alas, the dish has become a staple in many homes. According to Bon Appetit, this culinary wonder may date back to medieval times, when peasants found a successful way to prevent meat scraps from going to waste. It has since made its way to the forefront of the American palate, alongside the greats like hamburgers and hot dogs. The savory dish may even be to thank for full bellies during one of America's toughest times, the Great Depression. The combination of ground meat and bread lives on as a menu staple at Cracker Barrel restaurants. What makes their version so unique is the use of one common household item in place of breadcrumbs: Ritz crackers. Made fresh in-house each day and finished off with a ketchup topping just before baking, the result is both tender and moist, making it one of the most sought-after items. It's so popular, in fact, it's even known to sell out. If you have a hankering for pancakes in the late afternoon, you are in luck. Cracker Barrel offers up its full breakfast menu all day long. While they serve over 50 million of those hotcakes a year, you might want something more than a stack of steaming pancakes. Let us introduce you to the breakfast version of the Meat in 3, Cracker Barrel's Sunrise Sampler. 2 farm-fresh eggs are served with their signature hash brown casserole, fried apples, grits, and a meat sampler. This is not just any meat sampler. It's your opportunity to try thick sliced bacon, smoked sausage, and country ham. It doesn't end there. Your breakfast adventure also comes with buttermilk biscuits, sawmill gravy, butter, and jam. They are even known to carry a special seasonal version called the Holiday Sunrise Sampler. This limited-run item, usually available around Christmas, comes with double-glazed cinnamon drop biscuits. Clearly, with this favorite, we prefer to not count our calories for the day.
At Cracker Barrel, we're cooking up warm feelings of home this season.
Unlike the aforementioned broccoli and meatloaf, we probably won't have to sell you on the double chocolate fudge Coca-Cola cake. The fudgy dessert begins with a handmade daily double chocolate fudge cake. This isn't your ordinary box chocolate cake. Cracker Barrel's cake is the creme de la creme of all versions after it's baked. According to Yahoo, both cake and ice cream top the list of America's favorite desserts, making this unique pairing a surefire winner on your next visit to Cracker Barrel. We won't judge you if you'd like to skip over the chicken pot pie and head right for the dessert. While we've scoured the internet for the perfect recipe, there's really nothing quite like the hash brown casserole from Cracker Barrel. Readily available as a soggy breakfast option at most fast food spots, their version offers just the right amount of crunch. Thanks to Cracker Barrel's all-day breakfast, be it morning, noon, or night, you can enjoy the combination of shredded potatoes, chopped onions, Colby cheese, and their signature seasoning blend baked together in joyous harmony. It's even available in a bacon and egg combo, or in a sweet potato variety with pecans and brown sugar. We're going to fill you in on a little secret for your next visit, when you should order their loaded hash brown casserole. What exactly does loaded mean? In this next-level interpretation of the classic dish, they will finish it off on the grill, top it with crispy bacon, and even throw in some more ooey gooey melted Colby cheese. Whether from the East or West Coast and any point in between, Sunday dinners are a cherished American tradition. While in Italian-American homes it's all about the sauce, at Cracker Barrel, Sunday homestyle chicken is the name of the game. According to the Daily Meal, we have Scotland to thank for inventing this deep-fried chicken method. Once reserved in America for special occasions, fried chicken is now a global favorite. Cracker Barrel offers two versions, with one being only available on Sunday. A variation of the classic Southern fried chicken, Cracker Barrel Sunday Homestyle Chicken is made with boneless chicken breasts. The chicken is hand-dipped in Cracker Barrel's secret buttermilk batter and fried, resulting in super juicy, deep-fried perfection. If Cracker Barrel does one thing right, it has got to be their biscuits. They've even dedicated an entirely new restaurant chain concept to the flaky pastry. Their signature biscuits come complimentary alongside nearly every option on their menu. And what's a biscuit without something spread across it? You can dip, dunk, and drench away with your choice of sawmill gravy, preserves, jam, and butter.
Making biscuits from scratch. That's how we try to put a little gravy on top.
Our favorite take on this perfect Southern pastry is the country ham and biscuit. Available as part of their breakfast all-day menu, you can up the ante of your meal, or just enjoy it as a light snack. A fresh buttermilk biscuit is halved and filled with a nice lap of country ham. Differing from their sugar-cured ham, this one is hickory smoked and hand-rubbed with their special curing mixture. The resulting slice of ham adds a bite of salt to balance out the butteriness of the biscuit. The country ham has become so popular, you can even order a whole ham off of their website and have it shipped directly to your door. Maybe we have Forrest Gump to thank for it, but Americans can't get enough of shrimp. Broiled, steamed, blackened, and butterflied, there are never-ending possibilities when it comes to whipping up our favorite crustacean. In fact, we have been known to occasionally indulge in literally never-ending shrimp thanks to Red Lobster's endless shrimp promotions. According to Slate, once shrimp farming became a thing around the world in the 20th century, rising production led to more affordable prices, hence the popularity. What was once a luxury can now be purchased for a meager several bucks a pound. And we are certainly not complaining. What happens when you combine our favorite under-the-sea treat with America's preferred method of cooking? Introducing Cracker Barrel's Country Fried Shrimp. A copious amount of shrimp is coated in sweet buttermilk breading and deep-fried to a golden brown. Completing the meal are a steaming portion of hush puppies. We're talking a literal boatload of food with this one. What's up with the South and sweet tea? It's just water, tea, and sugar, right? Wrong. According to Food Network, tea became super popular when Prohibition took effect in the South. No longer able to grab for a glass of the stiff stuff, people sought comfort in a sobering yet delicious glass of iced tea, and the obsession persists to this day. Freshly brewed in-house since 1969, Cracker Barrel sweet tea is stored refrigerated at all times, and then iced, never poured over ice while hot, which would result in a watered-down beverage. Beloved by customers, it is available as you dine by the refillable glass, or in half gallons to go. Looking for a little variety to spice up your life? Try one of their thirst-quenching flavors, like a blackberry tea that's blended with a fruit puree. Southern charm and sweet tea are pretty much the epitome of a visit to Cracker Barrel.
Cracker Barrel knows that when you've got driving to do, it's not just your car that needs fuel. But while the roadside convenience of Cracker Barrel can help you keep your trip on track, making the wrong decision when you order your meal might do the exact opposite for your diet. With that in mind, here are some things you should never order at Cracker Barrel. Mama's Pancake Breakfast. There's nothing like down-home cooking from mom, but while your real mom would want you to start your day off with a healthy breakfast, your Cracker Barrel mom doesn't seem to care too much about your health. That's because Mama's pancake breakfast consists of 3 pancakes, 2 eggs, syrup, butter, and a side of meat. If you pick bacon, which most people do, you end up with a meal that packs in 1,240 calories, 20 grams of saturated fat, and a heart-stopping 3,385 milligrams of sodium. Considering the FDA's standard 2,000-calorie daily diet includes a maximum of 20 grams of saturated fat and only 2,400 milligrams of sodium, you've pretty much screwed up your eating habits for the entire day before the day has even begun. No thanks, Mama. Grandpa's Country Fried Breakfast. It's not just Mama who has questionable nutritional judgment, because Grandpa's Country Fried Breakfast is even worse. This dish includes 2 eggs, grits, gravy, biscuits, butter, fried apples or hash brown casserole, and either country fried chicken or chicken fried steak, for a total of 1,535 calories, 20.5 grams of saturated fat, 475 milligrams of cholesterol, and 2,440 milligrams of sodium. No amount of down-home service can make up for the fact that this puts you over almost every daily recommended limit in just one meal. Country Fried Shrimp. If you see something on a menu listed as country fried, that should be a red flag that it's probably not very healthy for you. Case in point, Cracker Barrel's Country Fried Shrimp, which delivers half a pound of breaded fried shrimp, hush puppies, 3 vegetable sides of your choice, plus a complimentary corn muffin or buttermilk biscuit with butter. Even if you pick the blandest sides possible, like broccoli and coleslaw, this dish contains 1,380 calories, 17.5 grams of saturated fat, 340 milligrams of cholesterol, and 4,040 milligrams of sodium. That's nearly twice the recommended daily intake of sodium. Yikes. Chicken and dumplings. There are other reasons to avoid certain menu items besides nutrition, such as taste and appetite, which brings us to chicken and dumplings. As one reviewer for the Dallas Observer wrote, it was like someone drank a gallon of milk, waited for parts of it to curdle a bit into oddly shaped balls, and then regurgitated it onto a plate. It tasted like the taste after you burp, but worse. Listen to your inner voice on this one.
There is a dangerous smell, people. Hold on, what is that?
This is disgust. She basically keeps Riley from being poisoned.
Dumplings on the side. Many of Cracker Barrel's entrees come with the choice of multiple sides, which gives patrons a lot of options when putting their meal together. One side you should avoid, though, is the mystery dumplings, and not just because of that whole chicken and dumplings fiasco. A side of dumplings contains, you guessed it, 940 milligrams of sodium, which is nearly half your recommended total for the entire day. Considering it will be just 1 out of 3 or more side dishes, adding it to an already crowded plate is almost a guarantee that you'll eat way too much salt today. Just because they tell you to enjoy every little thing doesn't mean you have to.
Side dishes. Don't have to worry about those this year. I've got tons.
Macaroni and cheese. Cracker Barrel's online menu doesn't offer much information for the macaroni and cheese side option, but while mac and cheese can make for a good dinner when prepared well and eaten in moderation, when it's casually included in a long list of side options, it's more like a landmine, sitting quietly and unnoticed until someone chooses it without thinking. Then, boom! An extra 300 calories, 22 grams of fat, and 600 milligrams of sodium just blew your diet and your health to kingdom come. Half-pound bacon cheeseburger. Cracker Barrel has decided that nothing shows its pseudo-family brand of love for you like a half-pound of grilled meat topped with cheese and thick-cut bacon with a side of fries and coleslaw, which all adds up to 1,540 calories, 245 milligrams of cholesterol, and 2,170 milligrams of sodium, which is all dreadful but still just under the recommended daily limit. But we're not done, because there's also 30.5 grams of saturated love. No, sorry, saturated fat, which is 50% more saturated fat than you really should be eating in an entire day, much less in a single meal. Don't eat it, no matter how much they try to make you.
You can't waste food. Plus, you have to eat your dinner. Come on.
Baked apple dumpling. Nobody expects any health benefits from their dessert, but it's still possible to satisfy your sweet tooth without destroying your diet, which is why you should avoid the baked apple dumpling with ice cream at all costs, just as you should apparently avoid anything at Cracker Barrel with the word dumpling in the title. This seemingly simple dessert somehow packs in an incredible 1,700 calories, 73 grams of fat, 31 grams of saturated fat, 1,590 milligrams of sodium, and 118 grams of sugar. So unless you want a massive take-home bag of regrets and high blood pressure, you may want to skip this one.
Most restaurant chains come with at least a few scandals, but Cracker Barrel has had an almost shocking number of scandals, lawsuits, and accusations leveled at them, especially considering they're a relatively new chain, in the grand scheme of things at least. Here are some huge scandals that may haunt Cracker Barrel for quite a while to come. In 2004, Cracker Barrel was embroiled in several scandals, including a lawsuit brought by the NAACP and an investigation by the Justice Department. The actions were instigated by claims that Black customers in several states were subjected to not only the restaurant segregation policies, but other shockingly terrible types of treatment. The list of accusations was long and included segregated seating, seating and serving Black customers after white customers, subjecting customers to racial slurs, and shockingly serving Black customers food that had been fished out of the garbage. Servers were also allegedly allowed to refuse service to customers based solely on their skin color. The Justice Department investigation came first, and Cracker Barrel wasn't fined for their findings. Instead, they agreed to put anti-discrimination measures and training programs in place, along with hiring outside auditors and undercover diners to monitor their progress. In spite of the 2004 investigations and settlements, Cracker Barrel has had continued problems with accusations of racism as recently as 2018. Cracker Barrel was hiring in 1991, but thanks to a newly implemented HR policy, they were only hiring people who weren't gay. The policy didn't just forbid hiring gay employees, but they also fired at least 9 current employees because of their sexual orientation. Think it can't get worse? The New York Times interviewed one employee that had been fired under the policy, Cheryl Somerville. She had been working at Cracker Barrel for 3 years and said, "They said they didn't really want to fire me because the policy was really aimed at effeminate men and women who have masculine traits who might be working as waiters or waitresses. But I said I couldn't just let them fire other people and keep me, because it would just be a matter of time before the policy caught up with me too." Cracker Barrel's response was bizarre. They finally rescinded the policy, but didn't really accept any fault. Instead, they called it a, quote, "well-intentioned overreaction to the perceived values of our customers and their comfort levels with these individuals." It wasn't until 2002 that Cracker Barrel added sexual orientation to their non-discrimination policy, after scoring a dismal 0 on the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index.
I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
In 2013, Duck Dynasty's Phil Robertson went on record with some seriously controversial anti-gay comments that led to a suspension from the show. What does that have to do with Cracker Barrel? The company weighed in on the side of everyone who was offended by the remarks and Robertson's anti-gay rhetoric. Briefly, according to Forbes, their first move was to announce that while they were going to continue to carry some Duck Dynasty-related merchandise, they were removing products that might offend guests. Essentially, they pulled the A&E produced Duck Dynasty products, but kept selling the more independently produced Duck Commander products, including books like Miss K's Duck Commander Kitchen Cookbook and the Duck Commander Devotional Book. Cracker Barrel was the first retailer to make the move, but it took just about 24 hours for them to backpedal hard. They issued an official statement that read in part, "Our intent was to avoid offending, but that's just what we've done. You told us we made a mistake, and you weren't shy about it. You flat out told us we were wrong. We listened. All Duck Dynasty products were returned to shelves." There's a bit of a long story behind the lawsuit Cracker Barrel was served with in 2018, and the newspaper The Tennessean says it started back in the 1970s. That's when Earl Peanut Montgomery was busy co-writing songs with country music legend George Jones. And it's also when Jones pitched him an idea. The plan was to have Montgomery produce an album that would be something of a gift. Proceeds from the album would essentially be Montgomery's retirement package. That was the plan, at least. The album was recorded, but when Jones started to get shuffled from recording studio to recording studio, it was never released. Fast forward to 2017, when Jones' widow, Nancy, sold all his intellectual property to Concord. Concord then made a deal with Cracker Barrel to release the album, and the move resulted in Montgomery filing a $5 million lawsuit. He claimed that Nancy Jones didn't have the right to sell the record in the first place, and they definitely didn't have permission to release it. A fatal shooting at a Cleveland Cracker Barrel has resulted in a long investigation and lawsuits filed by family members of the people killed there. In 2012, Kate Allen was at Cracker Barrel with her husband Kevin and their 2 daughters. They were celebrating the birthday of one of their girls, but she was also telling her husband she was leaving him in the wake of numerous domestic violence charges, convictions, and reports filed with local police. After the conversation, Kevin Allen left the restaurant, returned with a shotgun, then shot his wife and 2 daughters. Police arrived and the shooter was shot and killed at the restaurant. While his wife and 1 daughter died at the restaurant, the other daughter passed away about a month later. Not long after, Kate Allen's family filed a lawsuit, condemning Cracker Barrel and the manager for not offering to help when they say she approached them for it. According to eyewitnesses, Kevin Allen had taken his wife's car keys before leaving to fetch a shotgun. She had allegedly approached the manager and asked to be allowed to hide in the restaurant with her girls until someone came to help them. But later, the manager gave 2 different statements and told 2 different stories that made it unclear just what their conversations had been. She hadn't been offered the hiding place she'd wanted, and in late 2016, a judge found enough reason to allow the lawsuit against Cracker Barrel to proceed. Go back through Cracker Barrel's recent history, and you'll find a whole slew of sexual harassment lawsuits. In 2006, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission issued a press release on the chain's agreement to pay out $2 million to resolve a lawsuit brought by 51 former and current employees who were subjected to not only sexual harassment, but racial harassment that was very similar to the working conditions outlined in the massive 2004 lawsuit. The following year, Nation's Restaurant News reported that they were spending $270,000 to settle another lawsuit brought by 5 former female employees in New Mexico. And in 2009, the EEOC reported they were handing out another $255,000 to settle yet another sexual harassment lawsuit that not only claimed male employees created a hostile work environment, but that Cracker Barrel's corporate refused to take the claim seriously. That's not the end of the story either. In 2007, Cracker Barrel turned around and sued several of their insurance companies when they refused to cover the first $2 million payout for the 2006 verdict. According to Insurance Journal, the insurance providers claimed that the lawsuit wasn't something that was covered under the policy, while Cracker Barrel claimed their carriers consistently denied their insurance policy obligations by refusing to reimburse. On February 27, 2017, Bradley Reed Bird kicked off one of the biggest social media scandals of the year when he posted a rant on his personal Facebook page, followed up by a direct question on Cracker Barrel's Facebook page about a week later. The topic: "Why did you fire my wife?" According to Eater, literally all of Cracker Barrel's social media accounts were deluged with angry comments from customers who were taking up the cause of getting #justice for Brad's wife. Even Instagram photos of delicious-looking pancakes were flooded with comments about how Brad's wife wasn't going to be enjoying them anytime soon. And it kept going on and on. Some even started a Change.org petition on the Bird's behalf. While Brad claimed his wife's termination came just days before she was due to receive a vacation payout, Cracker Barrel continued to keep quiet over the whole thing. Cracker Barrel fired longtime manager Belinda Jones in February 2016, after she had been working for them for 21 years. The reason they gave was that she had been handing out discounts to friends and family, but Jones claimed that her liberal use of discounts was allowed within company policy, and that corporate had even taken notes of how her sales were doing, pre- and post-discount. The real reason for her termination, she claimed, was rooted in a conversation she had with her district manager. Jones claimed the manager asked her not only about her husband's health, but of the cost of his cancer treatments, and her responses kicked off an investigation into her discount use. Other managers who gave discounts in a similar way weren't fired, her lawsuit claimed, and Jones's camp says it was just an excuse to fire her, get out from under the costly cancer treatments, and replace her with a younger manager. The case is ongoing. Cracker Barrel has had a few lawsuits filed against them for their handling of current and prospective employees with disabilities, too. In 2013, the Dayton Daily News reported that they were being sued by Johnny Wills, who was fired from his general manager job because he had been diagnosed with a rare liver disease. Wills, who was named General Manager of the Year in 2007, was diagnosed in 2008. The condition forced him to take more time off than expected. He ended up on a work improvement plan for reasons Will says were bogus, and he was told to hand in a resignation letter in 2010. Later, a jury found that his resignation was not forced as he had claimed and sided with Cracker Barrel. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission stepped in on another case in 2018, when the National Law Review says they took up the case of a deaf man who had been denied employment as a dishwasher because of his disability. The applicant showed up for a scheduled interview, was told the manager who was supposed to do the interview wasn't there, and other store managers refused to conduct an interview at all because they weren't comfortable trying to communicate with him. But that wasn't the only time Cracker Barrel got in trouble for its failure to properly accommodate disabled people. It's a business's responsibility to be accessible to all customers, and in 2014, Cracker Barrel was sued because they had failed to do that. Business Insider says it was Sarah Heinzel of the U.S. women's wheelchair basketball team who brought the lawsuit against Cracker Barrel. It was based on a simple fact. When she tried to use the handicap parking spaces at the restaurant, she found they were so steep that her wheelchair just rolled away before she could get into it. Heinzel's suit was based in Pennsylvania, but the problem was much more widespread than that. The case cited 107 restaurants that weren't up to code and didn't adhere to the guidelines put in place by the Americans with Disabilities Act. Cracker Barrel was given 30 months to fix those problems, and slightly longer than that to fix any other problems found by surveys at other locations. New locations would need to earn certificates of compliance to show there were no problems at new restaurants. Heinzel was awarded $7,500, and Cracker Barrel was ordered to pay $830,000 in legal fees. Food poisoning outbreaks are terrifying, and one repeatedly affected plenty of customers in southwestern Michigan in 2017 and 2018. According to MLive, 11 cases of salmonella were reported to the Kalamazoo County Health and Community Services Department, and it was traced to Cracker Barrel. Workers and health officials tried to track down the precise source of the strain, but here's where things get extra terrifying. They couldn't find it. The restaurant closed first for a complete kitchen remodel, then a few months later, they closed to upgrade the dish room. They got a clean bill of compliance, reopened, and closed again when the salmonella reappeared. Cracker Barrel notes that it's not a supply chain problem, and it's a type of salmonella only found in Southwest Michigan. The county's health department called it a significant salmonella contamination, and since they just couldn't get rid of it, they closed that location permanently.
Cracker Barrel has dotted the sides of U.S. interstates since 1969, when founder Danny Evans had a hunch travelers were looking for a pit stop food option that wasn't fast food. He was right, but there are some things you should know before heading to the highway staple again. According to Southern Living, Cracker Barrel isn't just giving homage to the literal barrels of soda crackers it used to have available for purchase in the country stores at each restaurant. The actual Merriam-Webster definition of Cracker Barrel is, quote, suggestive of the friendly, homespun character of a country store. Ah yes, it all makes sense now, doesn't it? So Cracker Barrel aimed to be a place where diners could have a Cracker Barrel experience in an atmosphere adorned by literal barrels with crackers in them, or Cracker Barrels. Confused yet? No need. The famous logo for the interstate staple does, indeed, feature a gent in a rocking chair leaning on a barrel full of what one can only assume are crackers, and all visitors are familiar with the welcoming country store-type feel. Cracker Barrel is simply a name more complicated than it seems at first glance, and it's one that recognizes the brand's history and mission. It's also one that reminds us we need more adjectives like Cracker Barrel in our regular lexicon. Cracker Barrel does not mess around when it comes to the rocking chairs decorating the patios of its many outposts. It sticks to the friendly Southern front porch theme and nothing will stop it. Southern porch aesthetic aside, the iconic rocking chairs serve another purpose. You need somewhere fun to sit because the wait time to get a table at Cracker Barrel can be quite long. Those rocking chairs are made for Cracker Barrel by the Hinkle Chair Company in Springfield, Tennessee. So yes, even they are authentically Southern. They have some pretty impressive roots, too, as it's a family company that has been in the furniture-making biz since their triple great-grandfather started a side hustle from his farm almost 180 years ago. Grandpops would be proud as they make about 200,000 rocking chairs a year for Cracker Barrel restaurants. And even though you can buy chairs through Hinkle themselves, you'll need to buy it directly from Cracker Barrel if you want that signature medallion on your own front porch. They'll set you back $170, but it's nice to know Cracker Barrel is true to its roots, even with the furniture, which is not only American-made, but Southern-made. Even better, they regularly run charitable programs such as Operation Rocker and donate a huge number of rockers to military families across the country. That's the sort of thing you can feel good about by rocking away in your own. In 2017, the firing of one Cracker Barrel employee led to legions of internet trolls and memes poking fun at the down-home country restaurant chain. A man named Bradley Reed Bird posted to Facebook that he was livid with Cracker Barrel for terminating his wife, who had been working at the restaurant for over a decade. He entrusted his Facebook followers with going to the Cracker Barrel Facebook page, calling them out, and asking what had really happened. The internet really delivered because from that moment on, anything the restaurant posted on its social media was lambasted with comments about Brad's wife's firing. It even birthed the hashtag #JusticeForBrad'sWife. Within a week, there were tons of memes inspired by the event and offers of employment for Brad's wife, Nanette. The meme had some serious staying power too. Years later, there are still folks trolling Cracker Barrel's Facebook with Brad's wife jokes and memes. But really, you can't blame Cracker Barrel for staying mum. Would you want a former employer telling the world why they fired you? Let it be known, Cracker Barrel isn't in the business of handing out free grub. In fact, one of their employees was fired for giving a homeless man a muffin and some condiments at a Cracker Barrel location in Venice, Florida. The worker, Joe Koblenzer, a 73-year-old military veteran, claimed the man came in asking for tartar sauce and mayo to eat with the fish he was cooking. So Koblenzer kindly obliged with some free condiments along with a corn muffin for good measure. Then the general manager of the Cracker Barrel canned Koblenzer for violating a policy that prohibits giving away free food. To be fair to Cracker Barrel, Koblenzer acknowledged he had already broken some rules prior to the tartar sauce incident, so legally, if someone's had a couple of slaps on the wrist already, they are within their right to fire him. Still, Cracker Barrel does sort of come off like the bad guy for telling a worker to deny someone in need of a very minute amount of free sustenance. But them's the rules, and they've got a business to run. It seems as though Southern hospitality only goes so far.
Mr. Jordan, I saw you steal my sink.
You may have thought you were a Cracker Barrel superfan, but you've got nothing on Wilma and Ray Yoder from Goshen, Indiana. The octogenarian couple have made it their mission to go to every Cracker Barrel in America. In August 2017, they met their goal when they hit an Oregon Cracker Barrel that was the very location that marked a grand total of 645 restaurants for the chain. Ray Yoder started frequenting the restaurants more than 40 years ago when he was working for a company that delivered recreational vehicles all over the country. He says the visits alleviated the tediousness of his trips. His wife Wilma started accompanying him, and after 3 decades of the duo's treks, the chain started to publicly acknowledge their loyalty. The company even celebrated the couple's arrival at the 645th restaurant in Oregon, giving them free aprons and a hearty welcome from the staff. Of course, the Yoder's goal is never really complete as Cracker Barrel continues to add more locations every year. Honestly, they don't seem to mind. Let the Yoders be a lesson. There are definitely perks to staying loyal to a brand. If you're planning to dine at Cracker Barrel, may we not suggest the Southern Fried Chicken? Health-wise, it's easily one of the worst items on the menu. It weighs in at a whopping 1,640 calories, has 100 grams of fat, and an astounding 4,730 milligrams of sodium. Even worse, none of those numbers even include the 2 sides and endless biscuits. And if you're dining on Sunday, watch out for the featured special, the home-style chicken. The Lord's Day is definitely not the Heart's Day in the case of Cracker Barrel, because this dish weighs in at 1,350 calories and 92 grams of fat.
I state my regret.
Of course, you can order these chicken dishes if you're just dying to give them a try, but we certainly wouldn't recommend making it a weekly event. If you're going to take the plunge, maybe split the meal with your fellow Cracker Barrel patrons? If you're thinking about giving the whole Thanksgiving Day hassle a miss this year and just getting your dinner from Cracker Barrel, you'd better get in line. Cracker Barrel confirmed in a press release that Thanksgiving Day is, in fact, their most jam-packed day of the year. Across the country on this feasting holiday, they estimate they serve 650,000 pounds of turkey and 1.1 million slices of pie. The other Thanksgiving staples it slings out in massive quantities include 8 million ounces of gravy and 1.6 million ounces of cranberry relish. Who would have thought cranberry was that popular? This includes carry-out Turkey Day meals as well as dine-in grub, so bottom line, if you plan to eat at Cracker Barrel this Thanksgiving, plan accordingly. You won't be the only one. Cracker Barrel is very deliberate with its decorations. All of the locations are full of authentic antiques, and the layout of each new restaurant is well planned. In fact, there is even a mock restaurant in their headquarters used to lay out the decor of new locations. The design theme comes from the general stores that used to be the name of the game in the late 19th and early 20th century, when they started to exist as a solution for peddlers sick of being on the road. They were nothing fancy, but they did serve as a one-stop shop of a lot of your basic needs. And that's the spirit Cracker Barrel is going for, and it's why the items for sale in Cracker Barrel store range from everything you need to decorate your own country kitchen to gospel music CDs. While the historical vibe might not be exactly what the store vibe was a century ago, the restaurant's commitment to preserving the American country general store, with both its retail items and its decor, really serves as a living museum of American history. And that museum also happens to have some pretty legit chicken fried steak. In 2016, Cracker Barrel got into the fast casual market with Holler and Dash, a biscuit house that serves up breakfast, brunch, and lunch, with a titillating array of savory and sweet options. The menus vary by city, but the vibe is decidedly minimalistic and industrial. The Holler and Dash locations are very unlike Cracker Barrel, and while the fate of the Holler and Dash spin-off is unknown for the long term, props to Cracker Barrel for trying to make biscuits a novel concept. In the meantime, if you find yourself heading to Cracker Barrel and wishing you could get more of those delicious biscuits and only those biscuits, this might be the place for you. Cracker Barrel has a bit of a sordid reputation when it comes to progress on some hot-button American issues. According to the New York Times, in 1991, there was a company-wide directive to fire any Cracker Barrel workers who had, quote, sexual preferences that failed to demonstrate normal heterosexual values. More than a dozen employees were fired, and many spoke out and condemned this as a blatant act of discrimination against gay people. Cracker Barrel founder Danny Evans eventually apologized and retracted the policy, but the New York City employees' retirement system insisted that an apology just wasn't going far enough. They demanded he make the forbidding of discrimination explicitly official in Cracker Barrel corporate policy. Cracker Barrel got some negative attention that plagued the brand for a while, but they've moved on. Fast forward, and attitudes seem to be different. In June 2019, Cracker Barrel was in the news for refusing to let a pastor who'd expressed anti-gay sentiments hold an event at one of its restaurants.
Progress. It's the reason that your grandparents' views are better not spoken in public.
Cracker Barrel hasn't always been on the right side of history when it comes to race relations in America. In the early 2000s, the Justice Department accused the company of acting with racial bias on several occasions. A civil rights investigation revealed instances of mistreatment of black patrons at Cracker Barrels across several states in the southern region of the U.S., and the accusations, along with the findings, were pretty horrible. Employees that participated in the investigation admitted that practices such as seating based on the race of the customer were basically encouraged by management. And employees also claimed that a customer's race also impacted the level of service they received. And this was in 2004. A rep for Cracker Barrel at the time said they didn't believe the accusations, but nonetheless were going to move forward with an aggressive plan to address the complaints. Just how far that progressed attitudes, it's difficult to say, particularly because more accusations have been leveled at the chain since. In 2018, U.S. Air Force veteran Randy Freeman was at a Cracker Barrel in West Virginia and was accused by a manager of cursing at a server. Witnesses confirmed no such thing had happened and condemned it as the actions of a management that was just looking for an excuse to kick him out of the restaurant. Freeman took Cracker Barrel to court over the behavior, and the company found itself dealing with some extremely negative press yet again. Hopefully, the company is working to resolve the systematic issues that have plagued the company.
Have you ever dug into your country fried breakfast and wondered what it's like to work at Cracker Barrel? From what goes on in the kitchen to how often they get breaks, former and current employees have spilled the sweet tea on what really goes down in the restaurant. Cracker Barrel prides itself on its food, but considering they sell mixes and ready-made food, you might wonder how much of their menu is really made fresh each day in the restaurant. According to one Reddit user who claims to work for one of the top Cracker Barrel restaurants in the country, scratch-made food is still the norm. In a Reddit AMA, the employee revealed that the prep cook and backup cook come in at 5:30 a.m. each day to start making staples like the biscuits, cornbread, gravy, and fruit bowls. There are some ingredients, however, that arrive pre-made, but the cooks are still responsible for the final product. According to another Redditor, who claims to be a line cook at Cracker Barrel, the roux for the gravy comes pre-made and, quote, "we just add milk and heat till it thickens." If you've ever been inside of one of the 600-plus Cracker Barrel restaurants in the U.S., you might have wondered about the stars the employees sport on their aprons. Some have just one, while others have several. It turns out they aren't just for decoration. According to one Redditor who claims to be an employee training coordinator at Cracker Barrel, the stars represent how long an employee has been with the company, as well as their skills and progress. They say employees are rising stars for the first 30 days of employment, and in order to earn their first star, new employees must take tests about their position and have their performance evaluated by managers. If they pass, they get their first star. The max number of stars is 4, and, quote, "each star comes with new responsibilities, opportunities, and benefits." It's no secret that many people go to Cracker Barrel for the retail experience too. But just how popular is it? Very, according to a Redditor who claims to be a Cracker Barrel host. Some people don't even bother eating, but don't call it a gift shop. The user asserts, "It isn't a gift shop, it's the retail section of our store, and it actually sells pretty well. One lady bought 14 candles one day." If you think working at a restaurant where people also come to shop is strange, consider that some people come solely for the rocking chairs and a friendly game of checkers or the peg game. The host revealed, quote, "the rocking chairs are arguably more popular than the food." You'd think that breaks would be essential, but unfortunately, to hear some former employees tell it, that just isn't the case. Reviews on Glassdoor suggest breaks of any kind are hard to come by. One former Cracker Barrel host revealed that the cons of the job include, quote, "no breaks, no free food, no bathroom breaks if working alone." This apparently is the case for virtually any position at Cracker Barrel, as Glassdoor reviews from employees ranging from front-of-house servers and hosts to back-of-house grill cooks and dishwashers noted that breaks are pretty much non-existent.
I don't understand. Is anyone hurt? Not on the surface, no, but I can tell people are disturbed.
Reviews citing no breaks as a problem at Cracker Barrel go back to 2013 on Glassdoor. So one would hope the company would have resolved it by now, but the most recent reviews citing the same problem are from 2019. Former employees are still talking about Cracker Barrel's apparent reluctance to give out breaks, and that's a shame because those rocking chairs and a coffee would look mighty tempting after hours on your feet. Like many retail establishments, Cracker Barrel deals with its share of theft. So what's a Cracker Barrel employee to do if they suspect someone is stealing from the retail store or they're going to dine and dash? It turns out, not much of anything. According to one Redditor, Cracker Barrel employees aren't allowed to do anything if they suspect someone is bouncing the check or stealing from retail. We can call the police, but we can't approach the suspected thief and say, "Sir, are you stealing?" That creates tension in the store and doesn't appear hospitable. While this may seem like extreme hospitality, University of Florida professor Richard Hollinger, who specializes in loss prevention, explains what's going on like this. Cameras, electronic article surveillance, and security are the antithesis of the Cracker Barrel atmosphere. They treat their customers like neighbors. Neighbors watch out for each other and trust each other. At Cracker Barrel, discounted food is one of the appeals of the job, but you can only get it at certain times. One alleged Cracker Barrel server shared on Reddit, "We get a meal 50% off 30 minutes before or after our shift." According to the official employer summary on Glassdoor, Cracker Barrel also offers retail store discounts, quote, at 50% per scheduled shift. Current and former employees on Glassdoor noted some discounts are available even if you aren't scheduled for a shift on a particular day. But the amount is determined by your promotion level and ranges from 0 to 35%. The Redditor did note one caveat that makes those late-night shifts worth it, saying, "If you close, you can get some leftovers and all-you-can-eat biscuits and cornbread. Bonus!" When a restaurant is known for its down-home cooking, it's certain to serve up some Southern classics. But do all of the side dishes aim to please at Cracker Barrel? If you grew up hating vegetables, it was probably carrots cooked like this that caused your distaste. First off, the choice of baby carrots was a mistake. They're good served raw as a snack with ranch or hummus, but they quickly turn into mush when cooked too long, like the ones at Cracker Barrel. They had a grainy, soggy texture that was quite unpleasant. The seasoning didn't help either. The carrots were begging for more salt, but instead, they seemed to be doused in either white sugar or honey, something the already sweet-cooked carrots didn't need. This side was just a quick trip through the food processor away from being baby food.
Tastes like baby food. Knock yourself out.
As a side, the dish comes with no chicken meat. It's just dumplings and sauce. The dumplings themselves were properly made. They tasted well seasoned with salt and were nice and fluffy. Sadly, the sauce ruined the dish. It was over-thickened with flour, which made it quite gluey. This counteracted the lightness of the dumplings and made the dish seem heavy and excessively dense. If the sauce was supposed to be chicken-flavored, the poultry didn't really come through. Even worse, there was a strange, almost fishy aftertaste that the generous amounts of salt and black pepper couldn't totally mask. This side was served as a blend of pineapple chunks, cut up strawberries, and whole blueberries. The strawberries especially were incredibly tart, with no sweetness to speak of. Even though they looked beautiful and red, the blueberries had a little more sugar but still tasted sour. The pineapple looked pale and unripe and was as bland as it appeared. On the positive side, the pineapple was nice and crunchy, and all the fruit did indeed seem like it had been freshly cut. The main flavor you want from corn is sweetness, and this didn't have much of it. To be fair, it wasn't corn season during this taste test. However, thanks to food preservation technology, it's easy to access sweet corn all year round these days if you just buy frozen corn that was picked at peak season. Whatever the case may be, there wasn't much flavor to be found here. The restaurant didn't do anything to elevate the corn with seasoning either. The cooked broccoli in this taste test appeared to be completely unseasoned. While this was a little disappointing, the broccoli still won out over a couple of other vegetables simply because it was properly cooked. It appeared to be either blanched or steamed and was bright green, so it had clearly been cooked fresh and wasn't sitting in a warmer forever. It had a perfect tender crisp texture, not crunchy and raw inside, but not too soft either. With no seasonings to cover it up, the earthy, mildly bitter taste of the vegetable was strong. But even in the absence of salt, the broccoli was still more flavorful than the carrots or the corn.
I look forward to your report, Mr. Broccoli.
Baked potatoes are so easy to make at home. Just throw a potato in the oven for around an hour and you're in business. That makes it frustrating when restaurants like Cracker Barrel serve potatoes that are worse than what you could prepare in your own kitchen. The loaded baked potato wasn't bad exactly. It was a cooked potato topped with butter, sour cream, bacon bits, and cheese, and all of those components worked well together. Rather than being fluffy, the potato was firm, suggesting that it might have benefited from a few extra minutes in the oven. The bacon bits were made with real chopped up bacon, but they weren't very crispy. The cheddar cheese was a tad rubbery. On the plus side, everything had enough seasoning on it, so no extra salt was needed. The turnip greens from Cracker Barrel had some excellent qualities, but they were ultimately underwhelming. The best part was that they were super tender and soaked in the liquid from the bottom of the pot, which any greens aficionado knows is essential. While the texture was perfect, the flavor of the turnip greens needed a little help. Although they were mixed with a generous amount of country ham, the meat didn't impart a ton of flavor to the cooking liquid. The greens also needed some salt and could have benefited from a touch of acidity, heat, and sweetness as well. Without these balancing elements, the bitter essence of the turnip greens was more noticeable than it should have been. The taste of the hash brown casserole was a slam dunk. The shredded potato made a perfect starchy canvas for mild Colby cheese, a savory seasoning blend, and surprisingly assertive diced onions. The cheese goop the potato sat in had a pleasantly creamy mouthfeel with no graininess. However, it lacked a crunchy element. While the top layer of the casserole did pick up some browning in the oven, it wasn't actually crunchy, and the dish as a whole was quite soft. In fact, the crunchiest component was the onion, which was still basically raw. The mashed potatoes from Cracker Barrel weren't fluffy. Instead, they were dense and slightly chunky, which isn't necessarily a bad thing here. They packed a ton of potato flavor and had enough fat to make them pleasantly rich. You can order these taters 3 ways: plain, with brown gravy, or with white sawmill gravy. For this taste test, we chose brown gravy. This tasted less real than the potatoes, as it had a strong beef bouillon and powdered gravy vibe. Nevertheless, the dish was yummy, with a strong savory character and plenty of salt and black pepper. The coleslaw served at chain restaurants is often pretty bad. Sometimes the cabbage is wilted and limp, and the dressing is frequently overly sweet. Neither of these problems affected Cracker Barrel's version of the dish. The blend of green and red cabbage was sliced thin, but not so thin that it lost its crispy texture, and the slaw seemed like it had been made fresh. The carrots added a hint of sweetness, and the mildly bitter flavor of the cabbage came through as well. There wasn't an overwhelming amount of dressing. It was nice and creamy, with a hint of sugar and vinegar. It balanced out the veggies without taking over the dish or turning it into cabbage soup. Cracker Barrel's biscuits had a buttery flavor and were very salty, with a hint of baking powder in the aftertaste. They also seemed fresh, which is key for biscuits. They didn't have any sweetness to them at all, and some people might prefer biscuits with a hint of sugar. Texture-wise, these biscuits were more fluffy bready than the flaky crispy. They were soft with just a hint of chew, and were perfect for eating with soup or sopping up the juice from turnip greens. Ultimately, they were a solid blank slate for absorbing other flavors, but by themselves, they weren't the most spectacular biscuits. The fried description is something of a misnomer, as these apple slices are actually baked. The dish is sort of like a less sweet apple pie filling. The fruit is cooked with sugar and cinnamon until it's soft and delicious. The cinnamon and sugar mixed with the juice from the cooked fruit to make a gooey sauce, but the apples themselves still retained a hint of crispiness and bite. There also wasn't too much sugar. The natural acidity of the apples helped balance out all of the sweetness. This was a warming and hearty dish that would be equally enjoyable topped with a scoop of vanilla ice cream or next to a slice of country ham. Taking Cracker Barrel's hash brown casserole, cutting it into chunks, breading it, and deep frying it added all the texture and browning that the regular casserole lacked. The flavor of the tots was basically the same as the original component. That is, delicious. They tasted cheesier than the regular casserole version, but that might be a flavor enhancement from frying and extra seasoning. Frying also softened up the chunks of onion, which were better than the near raw onions in the casserole. The tot exteriors weren't super crunchy, but they had a soft crispness and plenty of browned flavor. Surprisingly, this side wasn't especially greasy. Some vegetables, like carrots, do not benefit from being overcooked. Others, like green beans, are amazing if allowed to cook slowly until they're almost falling apart. That's how Cracker Barrel prepares its beans.
I do very much enjoy cooking Thanksgiving dinner.
And you're so good at it.
Thanks, green beans.
The long cooking brought out a slight sweetness in the beans that you don't get from a brief dunk in boiling water. While the beans weren't filled with pork chunks like the turnip greens, they actually had a meatier flavor thanks to the pork seasoning. There was also a hint of onion and garlic powder, infusing additional savoriness, although with enough black pepper to give the beans more of a kick. This soup has a complex mix of flavors and textures hidden in the rich and deep broth. Swimming in the broth were chunks of tomato, peas, multiple types of beans, and corn. The beans really asserted their flavor, adding a comforting starchiness to the mix. The hefty amount of vegetable pieces made the soup feel quite hearty. The seasoning of the vegetable soup was simple yet effective. There was enough salt to maximize the flavor of the ingredients, and chunky bits of black pepper added zest to each bite. Cracker Barrel's fried okra was crisp, fresh, and snappy. Despite being coated in breading and fried, the green, springy flavor of the vegetable shone through. Sometimes breading has a hard time sticking, but the coating used by Cracker Barrel had no problem staying adhered. It had a light crispiness. Not necessarily crunchy, but it wasn't soggy either. The breading didn't soak up much oil from the fryer, so it didn't feel too unhealthy. Some of the okra pieces were a little tough, but the flavor was so good that this wasn't too much of a problem. Cracker Barrel's cornbread muffins tasted like they contained the barest hint of sugar, but they mostly leaned into a savory flavor profile and were better for it. The corn taste really came through in a powerful way. The cornmeal imparted a slightly gritty texture to the muffins, which was a good thing in this context. Although the muffins were hearty, they weren't heavy. They aren't very oily either, indicating they were made with the appropriate amount of fat. While the loaded white potato was a little too firm, the sweet potato was cooked until its insides were soft and almost creamy. Even more impressive, the skin was tender and tasty. Unlike many baked sweet potatoes, with skin that is often too tough and leathery to eat, the long cooking time made the flesh of the potato almost candy sweet. And that was before the sugary toppings were added. The sweet potato was slathered in sweetened butter and crowned with a toasted marshmallow that added a delicious s'mores vibe. The whole package tasted like the best Thanksgiving sweet potato casserole you can imagine. The mac and cheese was made with large, plump elbow macaroni cooked past al dente. Though it wasn't mushy, the pasta was coated in a ton of incredibly creamy cheddar cheese sauce. It had a little browning on top that suggested it had been baked, but it didn't stay in the oven long enough to dry out. The sauce itself was luxuriously rich and had a pleasant American and cheddar cheese flavor without being overwhelmingly sharp or tangy. The texture was perfectly smooth, with no graininess whatsoever.
Where's my mac and cheese?
Steak fries typically have a lower ratio of crispy surface area to soft interior. Cracker Barrel solved this problem by coating its steak fries in a thick layer of batter. The craggy nature of the batter increased the amount of exterior crispiness considerably. They were generously seasoned with savory garlic salt. The oil on the surface of the fries activated the garlic powder in the seasoning, lending the fries an almost roasted garlic aroma. The insides were just as delicious. The thick-cut potatoes tasted a lot more potato-y than a typical shoestring fast food fry. The fry interiors were also super fluffy and soft. Sometimes the simple things in life are the best, and that's the case with Cracker Barrel's pinto beans. They're a masterclass in how a basic ingredient, when treated with the proper respect, can be much tastier than a complicated recipe. These pinto beans had the firm texture and robust flavor of beans cooked from dry. While canned beans are convenient, they're bland and mushy compared to dry beans that have been rehydrated and cooked for hours on the stove. The dish was chock full of tender chunks of pork, and the meatiness worked in perfect harmony with the rustic flavor of the beans. Though these beans weren't as soft as canned ones, the insides were still creamy and smooth. You can't think of Cracker Barrel without thinking of Southern comfort food. Creamy mashed potatoes smothered in butter, fluffy Southern-style biscuits, and finger-licking good fried chicken. There's no shortage of indulgent, calorie-laden dishes on the menu at the popular chain. In that same category of stick-to-your-ribs, good old-fashioned home cooking is Cracker Barrel's chicken and dumplings, which they reportedly sell over 11 million orders of per year. You can find this traditional dish in cookbooks both north and south of the Mason-Dixon line, dating as far back as the 1870s, well before Cracker Barrel got started in 1969. This supposedly humble entree staple actually has less humble origins than you might think. Here's what even the biggest Cracker Barrel fans probably didn't know about the dish we all love to dig into.
But you know what else I can say? Chicken and dumplings, because those are on the menu and they are good.
And like you pointed out, it's comfort food.
These days, Cracker Barrel's chicken and dumplings is affordable and budget-friendly, made with basic ingredients like chicken, flour, and buttermilk. That wasn't the case when the dish first became popular. Chicken and dumplings was once thought of as a delicacy in the US because chicken was actually one of the more expensive meats to buy, compared to veal or beef. Even though we tend to think of it as a Depression-era dish, it really isn't. With the start of industrialized farming, chicken became cheaper, making it popular on tables across the country, including the country kitchens of Cracker Barrel. The chicken and dumplings we all know and love are now made with juicy white meat chicken and flat strips of chewy dough, all covered in a hearty helping of the creamiest, richest chicken broth. It all seems so rich anyway. There are plenty of copycat recipes out there that seem to have uncovered the secret of the dumplings. They are essentially boiled biscuits using flour, baking soda, salt, buttermilk, and shortening. Obviously, most people aren't going to Cracker Barrel to eat healthy meals, but those ingredients might make you wonder if these are particularly bad for you. An order of chicken and dumplings certainly sounds decadent, considering how much meat, fat, and buttermilk it features. But in terms of calorie count, the dish falls below most other main courses at the chain. An order of Cracker Barrel's chicken and dumplings is 450 calories, not counting side dishes. The roast beef and meatloaf dinners have slightly more calories. The country fried steak with gravy is higher still, at 600 calories. If calories are a concern for you, don't even think about the chicken fried chicken, which delivers 1,140 calories. That means chicken and dumplings is a decent option if all you're looking at are calories. The 40 grams of protein is a plus too. Like many restaurant dishes, the amount of sodium is a bit concerning, 1,680 milligrams. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration recommends 2,300 milligrams per day, so the chicken and dumplings gets you about 3/4 of the way to your daily limit before you even dig into those sides. Bottom line, for a Cracker Barrel option, the chicken and dumplings is a relatively health-conscious choice. If you've never tried the chicken and dumplings at Cracker Barrel, then you may not know another thing about the dish. Is it any good? It depends on who you ask. Generally, reviews on sites like TripAdvisor and the like are positive, with most people recognizing that the restaurant's take on the classic dish ticks all the right nostalgia boxes and is sufficiently hearty and tasty. Not all reviews are positive, but many negative reviews come from a fundamental misunderstanding of the dish. If you aren't from the South, you may think something looks a little bit odd with the dish. That's because chicken and dumplings from the North are typically made with what are called drop dumplings, since you drop balls of dough into hot liquid to cook them. This gives them a round, puffy shape. Southern dumplings are typically rolled and ribbon-like, and since Cracker Barrel channels that down-home country spirit, that's the style they use for their version of the classic dish.
In a world of get-up-and-go fast food joints and cheap, sometimes unfulfilling burgers and fries, there comes a time when you just want to enjoy an old-fashioned, home-cooked meal. Thankfully, Cracker Barrel offers customers a place of rustic charm and hot, homemade meals. From the interior walls adorned with turn-of-the-century farm tools to the modest general store-styled lobby selling boxes of candy and Christmas ornaments, Cracker Barrel feels worlds away from the various modern restaurants that serve up quick and easy flash-fried foods. Yep, just as the Colonel has his 11 herbs and spices and Burger King has the Whopper, Cracker Barrel also boasts its own trademark delicacy. Something so small, yet so temptingly delicious that guests consume more than 300 million of them annually, while 825,000 of them are pulled from steaming hot ovens each day, ready to be slathered in jellies and savoury apple butter. We are talking, of course, about that old classic southern staple, the buttermilk biscuits. So what makes Cracker Barrel's biscuits so good? Well, when one hears fast food style biscuits, some reactions may be that they will be served a piece of hard dough that's tough and flavourless. At Cracker Barrel, however, those fears can be left by the doorstep. At 650 locations in the United States, Cracker Barrel crafts each buttery, flaky biscuit by hand, with their only tools being custom-made biscuit cutters and rolling pins. Such is the dedication to the humble biscuit that there is even a designated biscuit oven in each Cracker Barrel kitchen. Cracker Barrel's Vice President of Culinary and Menu Strategy, Cami Spilliards-Schaefer, told Today, "We're rolling, cutting and putting biscuits in the oven every 15 to 20 minutes, so they're always coming out fresh. There's no need to worry about getting a soggy lump of biscuit pulled from a microwave here, folks. But perhaps the best part about these little doughy guys is that they are unlimited and free. Well, free with purchase, so do not just sit down at a table and demand free biscuits. Just order some country fried steak and take your time eating. But just how good are these biscuits? One Reddit user who claimed to be an employee at one of the top 10 Cracker Barrels stated in response to a comment, "All of our food is made fresh. Biscuits are made from scratch along with cornbread. All of our food comes off of a truck and then made to order." Of course, if such an enormous amount of Cracker Barrel biscuits are made each day, surely there has to be a good deal of people who enjoy a nice piping hot biscuit, right? As it appears, many people see the humble biscuits as underrepresented and, in a particularly colourful remark, absolutely divine when served with Cracker Barrel's sweet apple butter. Cracker Barrel biscuits are so popular that you can actually purchase officially licensed biscuit and dumpling mix on Amazon, with 65% of those who purchased it giving 5 stars and rave reviews. In fact, one Amazon customer wrote, "I wish Amazon had automatic monthly purchases for this. I love this stuff so much. I use it for more than dumplings and biscuits." Meanwhile, another Amazon user raved, "Every bit as good as the restaurant biscuits. Super easy to make, just add water, and they are better than any biscuits I've ever made." In a world where everything is fast, from the food to the service that you get, perhaps the reason why Cracker Barrel fans love their biscuits so much is that for a brief moment they can sit down and enjoy a simple, fresh, warm, flaky biscuit with friends and family.
Cracker Barrel is the perfect place to go if you're looking for a bit of Southern-style comfort food with a huge serving of nostalgia. Cracker Barrel is known for its uniqueness to this day, offering customers an old-school dining experience replete with antique decor, home-style cooking, and a porch full of rocking chairs. There seems to be a general consensus on what one of the best dishes from the restaurant is: their home-style mac and cheese. Whether you're recovering from a long week or want to reward yourself at the end of a tiring workday, the chain's version of the classic dish never disappoints. Seriously, you don't need to modify the dish at all with fancy additions like pulled pork or blue cheese. Let's be honest here, it's mac and cheese, one of the most comforting meals ever created. What we're saying is, if you're looking for something that will make you feel all warm and fuzzy, you should definitely consider this Cracker Barrel menu staple. So what sets Cracker Barrel's mac and cheese apart from its fast food peers? For one, it is made with a perfectly balanced cheese and noodle blend to take you straight to taste bud heaven. Secondly, the side is baked perfectly, producing a dish that is super creamy with patches of crispy cheese for that special something that keeps you coming back for more. This dish is so simple, but it doesn't require anything complicated to make you fall in love.
Macaroni and cheese? Hey, you know what I like. I grew up on macaroni and cheese. Hey, listen, I never say no when it comes to macaroni and cheese.
The scrumptious dish works well as a side, but can also make a filling main for those days where you really just need to help raise your spirits. There's a reason it's called comfort food after all. The Cracker Barrel website even lists larger size options as part of their catering menu if you know your whole family will want to dig in at home. With Cracker Barrel's vast menu, it makes sense that newbies can get a bit overwhelmed. In one such instance, someone reached out on Reddit to ask Cracker Barrel fans for food recommendations. They said, "I have a gift card to Cracker Barrel and I've never been there before. What's the best thing they offer? Going for dinner?" Cracker Barrel fans responded with their faves, including several former servers. Frequently recommended items included the fried chicken, pancakes, and of course the mac and cheese. Pro tip, an employee recommendation is always worth checking out. After all, they know every single one of their employer's dirty secrets. In a different thread, an AMA from a Cracker Barrel dishwasher, the mac and cheese was named again as an employee fave. The worker was kind enough to answer basically the same question twice, telling legions of posters that the mac and cheese was one of the restaurant's best dishes. Look for reviews on food websites and you'll find tons of praise for Cracker Barrel's savory bowl of cheesy goodness. Unsurprisingly, the dish has a cult-like following online, with loads of copycat recipes for those willing to put in the work and prepare the meal at home. Another great thing about this Cracker Barrel menu item, if you're really craving mac and cheese but not totally sure it's all you want for your meal, you'll still have plenty of room left to try other dishes at the restaurant. A side serving of their mac and cheese doesn't pack in a ton of calories of fat. It's really a perfect side dish to help complement the rest of the meal. Like many restaurant dishes, you may want to be mindful if you're watching your salt intake, however. A side serving of this comforting dish contains 700 milligrams of sodium, about a third of your daily recommended intake. Perhaps what's the most appealing about Cracker Barrel's mac and cheese, however, is that it retains its classic flavors by keeping things relatively simple. The dish features a recognizable combo of elbow macaroni noodles and gooey cheese, really offering up a nostalgic trip down memory lane. After all, is there anything more comforting than feeling like a child again, digging into a warm bowl full of macaroni and cheese?
Why is this chickie risky? It's not the crispy skin or the tender meat. It's a nutritional fact number that may make your eyes bug out. Here's why you may want to reconsider eating Cracker Barrel's Southern Fried Chicken. Whether you're stopping for breakfast or a big hearty dinner, Cracker Barrel promises a down-home country-style meal. From buttermilk pancakes and biscuits to country fried steak and pot roast, the chain offers customers a wide variety of comfort food. Of course, Cracker Barrel couldn't bill itself as offering Southern classics without one of the keystone staples: fried chicken. Yet the Southern Fried Chicken is a relatively new menu item. A Cracker Barrel press release touted its addition to the menu in 2019 to celebrate the chain's 50th anniversary. The release boasts, each piece of bone-in Southern Fried Chicken is authentically prepared, double-breaded by hand with a custom blend of 3 types of black pepper and several seasonings and spices, then fried until it's perfectly crispy on the outside and juicy on the inside. But before you dig into a golden brown thigh or breast, there's something you should probably know. What exactly is in it? No, the chicken isn't made with any grotesque ingredients, but that doesn't mean it's good for you.
That's why it tastes so good.
According to Cracker Barrel's nutrition guide, the chain's Southern Fried Chicken has 1,640 calories, 100 grams of fat, 475 milligrams of cholesterol, and an extraordinary 4,730 milligrams of sodium. To put that into perspective, the Centers for Disease Control suggests that Americans ingest fewer than 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day. That means Cracker Barrel's Southern Fried Chicken by itself will give you more than twice the recommended amount in one sitting. That doesn't mean Cracker Barrel is trying to sell you sodium bombs or even that you shouldn't have some Southern Fried Chicken every once in a while. Just keep it in moderation. Or you could try something else from the menu. How about breakfast, for example? With a selection of pancakes, French toast, bacon, grits, eggs, biscuits, and plenty of other down-home breakfast items, Cracker Barrel has a pretty impressive morning lineup. But there's one breakfast choice that may leave you feeling full in more ways than one. The Country Boy Breakfast, according to Cracker Barrel, consists of 3 farm-fresh eggs with grits, fried apples, and hash brown casserole, your choice of country ham, sugar ham, or sirloin steak. It also includes buttermilk biscuits and plenty of gravy. It's a hearty dish to be sure, and it also packs a punch. According to Fast Food Nutrition, one Country Boy breakfast has 671 calories, 26 grams of total fat, 590 milligrams of cholesterol, 80 grams of carbs, and 740 milligrams of sodium. But the sodium level depends on what type of meat you order. If you order the sirloin steak, for example, an additional 210 milligrams of sodium to the meal. Again, that doesn't mean you need to avoid the Country Boy breakfast at all costs, but if you enjoy this hearty breakfast, you might consider having a light lunch and dinner. So if the fried chicken is a big wallop of sodium and the steak breakfast option is another salt-heavy choice, how about something that's sure to be healthy?
You know what? I think I'll just have a salad.
Thank you. Just a salad.
Well, Cracker Barrel salads are generally a better option than sugar-cured ham and fried chicken. But even then, approach with a bit of caution. One salad option in particular puts up some big numbers. Cracker Barrel's home-style chicken salad includes either grilled or fried chicken, served atop a bed of greens, tomatoes, cucumbers, Colby cheese, hard-boiled eggs, and your choice of dressing. While this may not sound too offensive, according to Cracker Barrel's nutrition guide, the grilled chicken version of this salad still contains 470 calories, 21 grams of fat, 305 milligrams of cholesterol, and 920 milligrams of sodium. The version with fried chicken nearly or more than doubles the amount of calories, fat, and sodium. Compare that to the house salad, which contains 260 calories, 15 grams of fat, 35 milligrams of cholesterol, and 600 milligrams of sodium. While the amount of sodium, cholesterol, and calories may not make this salad a suitable starter for everyone, it can be a relatively inexpensive lunch if you're not in the mood for any of the heavier items on Cracker Barrel's menu.
Ever wonder how Cracker Barrel can offer so much food for such reasonable prices? The answers might surprise you. Keep watching to learn what piece of furniture keeps the restaurant in the black and the prices on the menu low. Hash browns are always a good idea for breakfast, but Cracker Barrel puts a spin on them and takes it to another level. Made with seasoned shredded potatoes, Colby cheese, and chopped onions, Cracker Barrel's signature hash brown casserole gets baked in the oven and comes out crispy and creamy. If you've ever been to Cracker Barrel, you're well aware that no breakfast there is complete without it. Delicious as they are, there's a secret to that magical shredded potato casserole recipe that you might find disappointing. According to an alleged Cracker Barrel cook on Reddit who was asked about the recipe, one of the ingredients is frozen hash browns. While we have no reason to believe anyone would be dishonest about such an innocuous detail,
and the truth shall set you free!
Keep in mind that this claim is only coming from a single cook. However, some restaurants use pre-made hash browns to save time, so it's certainly possible that a major chain like Cracker Barrel does too. If what the cook is saying rings true, then Cracker Barrel is saving some major time by sidestepping the whole process of having to shred fresh potatoes from scratch, which also saves money and keeps prices cheap. Regardless, there's no denying that Cracker Barrel's hash brown casserole is truly mouthwatering. If you haven't had it before, find your way to a Cracker Barrel to try a forkful and you'll become a believer. From creamy spreads to aged bricks and powdered packets, cheese comes in many forms, all of which are uniquely delicious in their own way.
It's pretty scrumptious.
Macaroni and cheese, one of the best vessels to showcase dairy in all of its miraculous glory, typically calls for a batch of gooey cheese sauce. While there's always some room for different interpretations and variations, cheese sauce is usually a combination of butter, flour, milk or cream, and cheese. While the recipe is pretty simple, it can still be a little messy and time-consuming. So it would make sense for some of the bigger restaurant chains to outsource their cheese sauce. And apparently, that's exactly what Cracker Barrel does, according to a Redditor who claims to be a cook at the restaurant. Someone once asked what Cracker Barrel's secret is to making such delicious macaroni and cheese. The former cook responded by informing the world that Cracker Barrel's cheese arrives at the restaurant frozen in bags. If the cook's claim is accurate, then Cracker Barrel is streamlining its macaroni and cheese recipe by utilizing a cheese sauce that's pre-made. And while using a pre-made sauce may be disappointing to some, it probably allows the chain to save on labor costs. The decision to use a pre-made sauce likely goes a long way to keep the price of macaroni and cheese on the menu affordable. At the end of the day, Cracker Barrel's macaroni and cheese is still delicious. And isn't that all that really matters? Maple syrup and breakfast go hand in hand. When we daydream about fluffy pancakes, there are always glistening drops of sticky syrup drizzling over them like sweet, heavenly rain. But the truth is that lots of restaurant chains don't actually use 100% pure maple syrup, and that includes Cracker Barrel. Instead of using 100% pure maple syrup, Cracker Barrel mixes maple syrup with sugarcane syrup. According to the label on Cracker Barrel's syrup bottle, the mix is 55% pure maple syrup and 45% sugarcane syrup. Let's give credit where it's due. We'd much rather have a sugary blend that includes some authentic maple syrup rather than a bottle that has none at all. That said, mixing pure maple syrup with sugarcane syrup is probably much cheaper than exclusively filling up the whole bottle with pure maple syrup. That's because maple syrup tends to be pretty pricey, which makes sense considering it takes about 40 gallons of sap to produce 1 gallon of maple syrup. By mixing sugarcane syrup with pure maple syrup, Cracker Barrel is keeping the cost of its syrup down, which translates into lower prices for diners. For those unaware, a roux is basically just flour whisked with melted butter. This blend creates a thin paste that forms the base for many different kinds of sauces. The longer it cooks, the darker it becomes, setting the stage for everything from a simple bechamel to a flavorful gumbo. Making a roux isn't necessarily difficult, but it does require some time and measurement. That might be the reason why Cracker Barrel allegedly uses a pre-made roux for their gravy. According to a Redditor who claims to be a line cook at Cracker Barrel, the roux at Cracker Barrel's restaurants is already pre-made so that all the cooks have to do is mix it with some milk. Considering that another cook on Reddit claims that other Cracker Barrel menu items like cornbread and biscuits are made from scratch, we have to admit it does seem a little strange to outsource something as basic as a roux. At the same time, it simplifies the cooking process a little bit, which helps the cooks whip up batches of gravy a little faster. Using a pre-made roux allows Cracker Barrel to streamline the gravy process, which gets it on your plate quicker. This can help Cracker Barrel sell more in a shorter amount of time, which is good for business and keeps the prices nice and cheap. Cracker Barrel put together a list of its 10 most popular menu items, and at the top of the list is Mama's Pancake Breakfast. This item includes 3 buttermilk pancakes, a couple of farm fresh eggs, and a choice of smoked sausage or thick sliced bacon. As a restaurant that specializes in classic breakfast dishes, it should come as no surprise that one of Cracker Barrel's top-selling items is pancakes. But what might surprise you is just how profitable those pancakes are. Cracker Barrel sells a 2-pound box of its pancake mix for $5.99, and according to the box, it can make up to 35 pancakes. Some quick math tells us that comes out to about 18 cents per pancake. And we have to admit that pancakes for less than a quarter a piece are a pretty sweet deal. Yet Cracker Barrel charges around $8 for 3 of its buttermilk pancakes at its restaurants. Those same 3 pancakes would cost just a little over 50 cents if you made them at home from the box. By striking a balance between a reasonable price tag and profitability, Cracker Barrel ensures a menu that's both financially successful for the business and also affordable for customers. One of the best things a restaurant can hope for is a constant stream of diners, and that's definitely something Cracker Barrel has on its side. That's because every year Cracker Barrel serves around 230 million guests. Even if the restaurant isn't making a ton of money on each individual sale, if it does enough business, it will still earn a lot of revenue. About 40% of those guests are travelers, which makes sense considering that Cracker Barrels tend to be strategically located near highway exits. In the late 1960s, America's interstate system was expanding, and Cracker Barrel founder Dan Evans capitalized on that moment by recognizing it as the perfect opportunity to launch a chain of roadside restaurants. He envisioned a diner that catered to people on the road. He wanted to go above and beyond what fast food companies offered by giving guests a more comfortable place to fill their bellies and talk around the table. He even attached a quaint little country store for everyone to do a little shopping. All of this proved to be very fortuitous for Cracker Barrel. Today, Cracker Barrel's steady business translates into about $3 billion in total revenue every year. Consistently impressive sales volume like this allows Cracker Barrel's business to thrive, which helps the company keep menu prices that are affordable for everyone. Some restaurants spend big bucks on fancy furniture, stylish decor, and elegant lighting to create a more sophisticated atmosphere. Cracker Barrel takes a different approach, devoting its efforts to rustic adornments that evoke feelings of nostalgia and simplicity. Cracker Barrel isn't trying to conjure up a sense of lavishness. Instead, its decor turns back time to reawaken cozy visions of a bygone era steeped in classic Americana. Some may say it's kitsch, but plenty of other people find it charming. Cracker Barrel's old-timey aesthetic and its attached country store gift shop have helped the restaurant carve out a distinct identity for itself. Cracker Barrel's sense of style feels unique and authentic, but it's also fair to assume that the price of all these weathered antiques and replicas probably pales in comparison to the higher cost of installing sleek, modern decor. The decor serves Cracker Barrel's bottom line in two ways. Not only is it cheaper, but it also generates lots of money for the restaurant. That's because the design scheme tends to attract diners into the gift shop where it sells lucrative collectibles. Cracker Barrel's most recent fiscal report posted on its website reveals a total annual revenue of over $2.5 billion. Nearly $500 million of that is from retail alone. Cheaper investment in decor, along with sales at its gift shops, means more money in the company's pocket, which keeps prices low all around. Rocking chairs are probably one of the first things that come to mind when you think about Cracker Barrel. After a hearty Southern-style meal, it's hard to resist taking one of those iconic rocking chairs for a spin, gently swaying in the breeze with a happy belly. What you might find surprising is how many of those rocking chairs the restaurant actually sells. Hinkle Chair Company, which has been hand-making rocking chairs for nearly 200 years, builds about 200,000 of them a year for Cracker Barrels all across the country. Considering that most of Cracker Barrel's rocking chairs cost around $200 a pop, it's fair to assume the company makes a pretty penny off of these babies. The revenue generated from the gift shop and the restaurant is lumped together, despite the fact that they are operated by two different teams. This means that all of those rocking chair sales help keep the restaurant side of the business afloat. In other words, all of the sales generated from the gift shop, including Cracker Barrel's rocking chairs, help subsidize prices on the menu to keep everything affordable. Every job has its stresses. The reality is that every form of labor comes with some level of strain and hardship. That's the nature of work.
I gotta get out of here. I think I'm gonna lose it.
Uh-oh. Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
That's certainly true for employees at restaurants, where the jobs tend to be physically demanding and fast-paced. Breaks at work offer fleeting, glorious moments of much-deserved rest. They are essential for everyone's mental health and physical well-being. The irony is that while employers may think they're getting away with something by not providing opportunities for consistent breaks, there's evidence that some downtime is actually better for productivity. That's because moments of rest renew our focus, increase morale, and improve our capacity for learning. Unfortunately, according to an alleged former Cracker Barrel employee on Glassdoor, the restaurant doesn't appear to prioritize breaks for its employees. The anonymous employee claims that the only way to get breaks at Cracker Barrel is to work a double shift or to just be in the good graces of management. Another former employee echoes these same claims on YouTube, and flat out says that she never had a break during her time at Cracker Barrel. By not providing steady breaks, Cracker Barrel squeezes more labor out of its employees and makes sure the restaurant is always well attended, which brings in more profit and keeps prices low.